The scariest moment of my life occurred in the spring of 2013 as I was driving to the grocery store with my dad. As I sat in the car, I kept imagining a dock, but the word itself wavered on the tip of my tongue. I stuttered through the first few words of my sentence and then stopped. I was frozen, unable to remember how to speak, panicking but incapable of asking for help, because asking for help meant admitting that something was wrong. When you think of anorexia, you think of girls with sharp cheekbones and sunken eyes. They are skinny, sad, lifeless. And at my worst, I was all of those things. But anorexia takes away so much more than weight. I doubt many imagine this disease as a 15-year-old girl unable to talk to her dad because starvation has shut down the part of her brain that processes speech. I doubt many imagine her curled up on the floor, racked with panic attacks that leave her unable to move, think, even breathe. But this was my reality. Usually, eating disorders are thought to be about vanity or looking a certain way. We are girls who want to be skinny, so just stop eating. The DSM-5 uses the words weight or fat 6 times in the course of 3 sentences when it defines anorexia. I find it's a little strange that they're categorizing a mental illness based on its physical symptoms. So I've created some criteria of my own. 1, you are racked with feelings of self-hatred, inadequacy, and a desire to disappear. You begin to believe that the world may be better off without you. 2, you isolate and constantly think of food. You feel out of control because the only thing you can control is your body. 3, your only solace is knowing that you're good at not eating. But since you eat to stay alive, you're not perfect at that either. Soon, you stop wanting to stay alive. In the spring of 2013, I was reaching the end of my freshman year of high school, running the varsity 2-mile for the track team and looking forward to a summer in Peru. I was only able to complete one of these. At first, I was good at keeping my weight loss a secret, but soon the time for hiding my eating disorder was up. On May 10th, I entered the Cambridge Eating Disorder Center, CEDC, and spent the majority of my summer there. Needless to say, I was no longer in school or running. At CEDC, I learned to eat again and how to sit somewhat less uncomfortably with food in my stomach. However, program did little to repair the abyss that formed as a result of the negative rhetoric I repeated to myself. I'm not good enough. I'm not sick enough. I'm not enough. The way I see it, those thoughts were the heart of my disease and the weight loss side effect. I was terrified that doctors were going to keep me out. At times, my only motivation to recover was that trip to Peru that Mr. Fernandez was organizing to bring school supplies into the Andes. Mr. Fernandez is the most amazing man I know, not because he is a fantastic teacher and archaeologist, but because he was one of the few people to believe in me when I had no belief in myself. I was terrified that doctors were going to keep me off of that plane, but even more so that my mentor would leave me behind. By some miracle, Mr. Fernandez took me under his wing, explaining that Peru would not hinder my recovery, but be the cause of it. My first 2 summers in Peru were whirlwind adventures. I recovered a purpose in life in journeying up into the Andes and watching pure joy radiate from the faces of children whose schools we supplied. It felt so good to do something and to feel needed. I recovered a reason to live and experienced unconditional love. It was there. The only thing I could think about was going back. However, going back meant I had to maintain my weight and eat my carbs, fats, and proteins in their proper proportions. So that's what I did. However, without the eating disorder behaviors, the depression that had been lurking underneath took a stronger grip, demanding I embody its warped version of perfection. Last summer, our trip was different. We weren't going to any of the villages we had been to before. Instead, we were focusing on one town before journeying up to an archaeological site called Lake of the Condors. I was so excited to go back because it was finally a chance to leave behind my imperfections. I was selfish. I felt entitled to a perfect experience. However, things shifted almost as soon as the plane landed in Lima. Mr. Fernandez had to leave the group for a while, and the friendship that had been there the last 2 years amongst my team was missing. Mr. Fernandez wanted to cancel the hike to the lake because he couldn't join us. But before he could cancel it for good, I went to talk to him. When I opened the door, I found him and Kevin, one of the adults on the trip and a very dear friend, sitting in his room. I told them how nothing meant more to me than this trip, and would they please, please, please let us go. I also told them that whatever happened, I could live with it. Because if this trip had taught me anything, it was that nothing was perfect. This is when Kevin turned to me and said, "Rachel, everywhere and everything that happens is perfect, because it's the way it's supposed to be." It's true that my last trip to Peru did not go as planned, and I probably spent more time crying than I would like to admit. However, it was there that I learned that perfection is not an adjective, but a way of thinking. There is perfect everywhere. In the tears that came as my trip fell apart, as well as the smiles that appeared as disasters turned into treasured memories. In Peru, I recovered excitement, love, and self-acceptance. And I learned that maybe, just maybe, I am enough. My experience with an eating disorder is not unique. 20 million women and 10 million men in the United States alone suffer. And they all feel alone. However, what they don't know is that there is a community of people behind them. I was lucky enough to experience that community in Peru, but many are not so lucky. Now, I need to ask you to do something. Please close your eyes. How many people have looked in the mirror and been unhappy with what they saw? How many people have seen themselves as not enough? You can raise your hand. Please keep your hands up and look around. We all mess up every day. And it is tempting for us to see ourselves as our failures. But seeing yourself this way is bad because it makes us think that our flaws define us. Instead, I challenge you to see yourself as what you're excited for. See yourself as what you love and who loves you. And most importantly, accept the pieces that make up a person whose dimensions deeper than the reflection staring back. Recovery from an eating disorder is a lot like a hike through the mountains. It's an incredibly strenuous climb, and sometimes, or most of the time, you'll feel like you're alone, stumbling through the woods. When you're in the midst of such a climb, it's difficult to envision the summit. And sometimes you'll have to turn around and start over. In Peru, I learned that there is support, there is love, and there are people who are willing to take that journey with you. In Peru, I learned that I matter, and that there's so much more to life than hating yourself. Thank you.